Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Whoa, sorry. I forgot to make an announcement. Too late. I know. Too late. That's it. So if you like to eat afterwards, JT will be hosting lunch at the Rodigio Steakhouse in El Cajon. It is on the corner of Magnolia and Main. I believe it's in the old pizza shop there. So right on the downtown cross streets there by the El Cajon sign. Rodigio Steakhouse. Afterwards, if you are interested in going, plan to go, please let JT know because he's making things happen. So you can reserve a table. So it's a Brazilian steakhouse,
Yeah, all you can eat Brazilian steakhouse for $40 a person.
$40 a person for lunch. That'll be amazing. Good for you.
Yeah, the other option was $80 a person.
Oh, okay. The other option was $80. So consider it a discount.
And in downtown.
JT is saving you money. All right. In a manner of speaking. All right. Hey, we'll jump in. Listen. So I'm sure most of you know this, but today is, of course, Sunday, December 8th, 2024. But if you keep track of calendars, and you're one of those people, today is not just September 8th, Sunday, 2024. It is also officially the Day of Finnish Music. Even better still, for some of you chocolate lovers, it is National Brownie Day.
Okay.
This one, it's also Pretend to be a Time Traveler Day. In fact, I've come from the future to tell you that this might be the most important sermon you ever hear. It is also Gingerbread House Day. And for all my choir members, it is World Choral Day. And one that is sure to make my wife very happy, it is Worldwide Candle Lighting Day. And National Blue Collar Day. So for all my blue collar workers out there, today is your day. Today is your day. And here's for, not that we have but this was an interesting one too, because I've read the book. I've read the book Siddhartha. Today, if you're a Buddhist, today is the day when Siddhartha attained enlightenment, becoming the Buddha. So for every day, days mean something different to different people. In fact, I don't know if you realize this, but there are countless days and holidays and commemorations that take place almost every day of the year. One of my favorites is perhaps, I believe it's September 22nd, it's National Talk Like a Pirate Day. One of my personal favorites, but almost every day. And it's a little daunting, and to be honest, some of them are oddly specific, but they happen every year. They go over every year. And did you know that most countries honor, like when I say today is the date that it is, I am talking about the Gregorian calendar. But at any given time in the world, there are up to something like 40 different calendars in use throughout the whole world, marking different cultural and religious dates, times, and seasons. So we say that today is December the 8th, according to the Gregorian calendar, but according to the Julian calendar, it is Sunday, the 25th of November, 2024, which is, so this calendar is often used by the Eastern Orthodox Church. That's why my family, who comes from the Eastern Orthodox religion, will have Easter like a week after we do, or Christmas. Like, it was great. We had 2 Christmases. It was pretty fun. Then on the Hebrew calendar, it is the 7th of Kislev of the year 5785. According to the Islamic calendar, it is Friday the 7th of Jumada el-Thani, 1446. And if you pay attention to the Chinese calendar, it is Zia Zhenqi year, Bingzi month, Bingwu Day, in the year of the dragon. Okay? So, there you go. What? So the reality, there are many, many more. But those are actually some of the most common calendars in use still today in the world. So you have this, and despite all these varying dates and all these seeming inconsistencies, one thing is consistent about every single one of these calendars. Here's what I'm telling you this. They all reset. They all roll over. Every single one of these calendars has the equivalent of a New Year's celebration. Jews have Rosh Hashanah, which typically happens in the fall. Islamic New Year lands somewhere in the summer. The Chinese New Year is a 15-day festival that ties into the new moon somewhere around the end of January. And so my point is that the turning over of the new year is a significant milestone observed by pretty much everybody in the world, okay? New Year's is a big world event. Sometimes it takes place at different times for different people, but almost everybody celebrates it. But with everybody celebrating it, though, does that kind of just mean it's some sort of like man-made holiday where we just stay up super late? Maybe we make some rash promises. Maybe you wear silly hats, launch some fireworks. Is that just a man-made thing? I don't think so. I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Because almost all of our calendars, listen, almost all of our calendars have their roots in the natural and the observable world. So there's lunar and solar and lunisolar calendars that were developed by brilliant men throughout cultures and societies in the ancient world. And I think this is the way that God intended it. Okay, some calendars are based on the phase of the moon, some on the sun, some combine the two. And we like to talk about how advanced we are as a civilization, right? But the Mayans and the Aztecs had accurate calendars that were able to not only predict the solstice and the equinox every year, but they even built their architecture to take advantage of the position of the sun and the moon and the stars. And here's the coolest part. That's exactly what God intended. So in Genesis 1, verse 14, it says, let there be, in the middle of creation, God says, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let those be signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Okay? God put these things in place to help us tell the passage of time. He says in Psalm 104, he made the moon to mark the seasons. The sun knows its time for settings. And so even though different people over the years have divided time and organized months and years differently, time itself is a creation of God. Okay? Time itself is a creation of God. Because before God created the heavens and the earth and nothing existed, time was somewhat irrelevant. All right? So God created time, and he set the tools in motion to keep track of it. And so the world itself turns in accordance with God's wishes and the unfolding of his plans. So in Daniel chapter 2, he says he changes times and seasons. He removes kings. He sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. And so the work of God is revealed in the passage of time, right? Time goes on. In the passage of time, as God uses temporary situations to unveil eternal objectives, right? God uses temporary situations to unveil eternal objectives, which means the new year is just one of the ways that we measure the unfolding of God's revelation, the unfolding of God's plans. And whenever the calendar rolls around, it forces us to acknowledge the passage of time and challenges us to consider what value are we ascribing to the time that we have. In fact, Psalm 90:12 challenges us. He says, so teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. Did a funeral this week for a friend's mom. Funerals are an amazing time to start reassessing everything. The time that we're given, the days and weeks and months that God has given us. And it's interesting because we take the time at a funeral sometimes it can get a little morbid, but at the same time, you tend to leave those places and hug people a little tighter and you start thinking about, what have I accomplished, what I need to do. And when the eulogy is good and you think about someone who made the most of the life you have, it's a challenge to do something important with your life and to make sure that when your time ends, you can say that I squeezed everything out of it, right? And made it valuable. And how do you do that? I think is what I said at the funeral, is you love God and you love people. Love God and love people. Eternity will take care of itself. Now, the New Year's means a lot of things to a lot of people. And if you've had a great year, right, it's a celebration of the past. And it's excitement that next year could be even better. If you've moved closer to your goals, then you have this dream and you could think like, this will be my year, right? Yes. Or, if you've had a particularly rough year, then the new year might be a godsend. Like, thank God it's over, right? And let's put it all behind us. Let's try again. And so we think that if God's mercies are new every morning, then perhaps it's double true every new year, right? Some of you just can't wait for the calendar to roll over. And we're ready to hit the reset button, and we're ready to give the year a new chance. And it's also possible that for some of you, the new year is just the reset button that you need, right? It's the pause that gives you time to recoup your thoughts, to make new plans, and to start fresh. And I get it. Some people are just over New Year, right? You're in bed by 9. You know who you are. You just wish everyone would stay quiet and let you sleep. You're frustrated when you get woken up at 12 o'clock by fireworks. Like, come on, people. Seriously. You've decided January 1st isn't any more special than December 31st, so why stay up and greet it? And let's be honest, there's nothing, magical about the calendar rolling over, but the marking of the passage of time, okay, it's why a lot of us wear watches, it gives a clear delineation of what was and what is and what might be. And when we do that, it gives us a great opportunity to use the new year to our advantages. And so because of that, I want to give you 4 reasons real quick why New Year's still matters. Okay, this whole series is about why the holidays still matter. Why does New Year still matter? Should I care about the new year? Well, yeah, I think we should. Because first of all, the new year allows us to reset. Now, if you've ever played a game, could be a video game, could be a board game, maybe you've got stuck. Sometimes your only option is to start over, right? Just to start over. I give up. I start over. I don't care how advanced the game system is. I have yet to play a video game that doesn't glitch out at some point and force me to hit the reset button, okay? Just get stuck like you're running into like a wall that's not there, and you're like, oh, okay. You jump, and you're just like hovering in midair, and there's nothing you can do. And as frustrating as it is, one thing I like about a reset button is it allows me to approach everything I'm about to do with the wisdom I gained in my last attempt, right? If you go through a game and you do something and you're like, oh, I got to start over, the next time you go through it, it goes a lot faster. You know the answer to all the puzzles. You know, I should have turned right instead of left. I should do this instead of that. You've learned. And when I have the chance to reset, I take the lessons I've learned, I apply them, either repeating the moves that succeeded, or I can choose new directions to help me avoid the mistakes of last time. And typically when you reset something, it takes you back right to the beginning. Maybe it takes you back to the beginning of a level, or it takes you back to 0. I like to think of like a chessboard. If you reset the chess board, you line all the pieces up where they need to start, and then they're all ready to be moved again. And each new move creates opportunities that often reveal our next move, all right? We get that? You make a move, and then that determines what the move is after that. And I think a lot of people are afraid to make a move because they don't know where it's going to go, but sometimes movement at all is the best thing to do. We step forward, we step out, and we kind of see what the reaction is, and that'll determine our next move. It's what leads people to new jobs, new relationships, to move to a new area. So for some people, it's just replacing their entire wardrobe, right? Something fresh and new, a chance for something different. And if you feel like you're stuck, a reset gives you a chance to make some different moves. And some people, they just want a new beginning, so hopefully they can have a better ending. We had a reset in this ministry. It was in 2000 when COVID hit, right? And I'll tell you what I mean by that. For a lot of people who were just kind of going through life, going and doing things, when the world stopped and the world paused, a lot of people took the time to step back and go, okay, things are different now. What am I going to do? I can't tell you the amount of people that moved just because of that, like they had a chance, or they changed jobs, or they took that break that was given them and made some new moves. And really, it gave them the chance to evaluate what they were doing and start fresh. But here's the cool thing. When we look at scriptures, this whole idea of resetting is a prominent part of the Christian walk. 2 Corinthians says, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. Your life is reset when you enter a relationship with Jesus Christ. Lamentations, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. You ever have a bad day and you're like, I'm just going to go to bed. And you wake up and go, okay, let's try again. God's mercies are new every morning. You hit the reset button. The New Testament describes us having new life in Christ. And all people who have received Christ are called what? Born again believers, right? I don't think you can reset better than born again. And the idea is starting with a clean slate, which is the message of the gospel. We have a clean slate every morning. And the beginning of the year is a great time for a reset. And the turn of the calendar brings it with the promise of a new opportunity, as well as closing the door on the past. And a reset isn't just about changing our behavior or accomplishing goals, but about a wholesale change in our attitude and actions. Not just doing things differently, but being different, okay? And it's about a genuine fresh start, one that's available to every one of us. And while a reset can happen anytime, right? You think about those habits, you think about that diet you're going to start, or I'm going to start exercising. You think, oh, I'll just wait, to the new year or whatever it is. But you can do that any day you want, honestly. But there's something about the new year that just really helps us put the past in the past and work towards a better future. But if we're going to reset, listen, if we're going to reset, there's something we have to do, and that is reflect. And the new year allows us time to reflect. We're going to reflect on two things. First, we're going to reflect on what we have done, right? How effective we are moving forward in our life is proportionate to how honestly we evaluate where we've been. You know, anybody who's ever talked about wanting to lose weight, one of the things they tell you to do is get on the scale so you can measure. I hate getting on a scale. I don't want to know. I don't look at that, okay? Because then I'm like, oh, man. But you have to know where you are in order to know where you want to go, right? And so reflection does that. How did I get here? What steps have you taken that brought you to this point in your life? What decisions did you make? What compromises seemed small at the time have now led me far off course? These are important things. Now, as we reflect, our prayer should echo David's words in Psalm 139. He says, search me, O God, know my heart, try me, know my thoughts, and see if there's any grievous way in me, and lead me into life everlasting. What a hard prayer. God, show me what's wrong with me. Anybody ever pray that prayer? Yeah. It's hard because God might. But he doesn't do it because he's out to get you. God does it because he loves you and he wants to change. If I step on that scale and go, ooh, yep, got to lose 10 pounds. That's not about, or 20 pounds or whatever it is. It's I could kick myself, or I could just use it as a measure to say, but it's achievable. I'm going to work towards that. If I want, I look at that and go, okay, there's something in my life that needs to change. And God graciously gives me those opportunities. And if you're going to pray that God opens your eyes, you better be ready to receive what he's going to reveal. And one of the dangers of reflection is when we refuse to acknowledge our part in our circumstances. Okay? When we consider resetting our lives, it's easy to look at our surroundings as the cause of our distress or the reasons that we need to reset. But a lot of people forget that wherever they go, guess what? They take themselves along. Right? If I go somewhere, I'm always there. So if I keep running into the same problems, I go somewhere else and I have the same problems. Maybe it's not everything else. Maybe it's me. It's a fair question. Okay? We have to look inwardly as much as we look around. In fact, that's the definition of reflection, looking back at ourselves. And if we're going to reflect on our life and our decisions, we need to see how they've measured up to God's intentions for our life as revealed in his word. That's why James says, be doers of the word, not just hearers, deceiving yourselves. If anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's like a man who looks intently at his natural face in the mirror, looks at himself, goes away, and at once forgets what he was like. And so reflecting on what needs to change in my life is pointless if I don't make some conscious decision to change and compare them with what I was doing before, right? If doing X led to Y, which I don't like, then instead of X, maybe I need to do Z or whatever it is. And the reason so many people get stuck is because even if after they've hit the reset button, even after they've reflected, instead of changing their plan of attack, they double down on what they were doing, right? They just do it harder. Maybe if I just hit my head on this wall harder, I'll finally break through. That's literally the definition of insanity, right? And figuring out what might work is only effective if you've taken the time to reflect on what didn't work. And that's okay to be honest, okay? And you should do it before somebody else does it for you. So we need to reflect on what we've done, but also reflection doesn't necessarily be about what we've done. It can also be about what God has done. When God introduces himself in the Old Testament, he identifies himself as what? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And so he's reminding them of his work in their life, right? Which is meant to influence how they live their life. And we see in the Old Testament, they have the introduction of the feasts and the festivals. And they're set up as reminders and memorials to the goodness and the work of God. When the Passover happened, right, and God sent the angel of death, and it passed over every home that had the blood of the lamb on it, he told Moses, he said, this day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations, as a statute forever. You shall keep it as a feast, right? And this memorial, the Passover, comes around once a year, just like Resurrection Sunday and Christmas do. And each new year gives us a chance to reflect on what God has done, and then to reflect on how we are responding to God's goodness. What things has the Lord done in your life? Where has God stepped in and led us and blessed us and just protected us from difficult things and guided us through the storms? I love, Pastor talked about the songs in the Bible today. This is a perfect one. This is Psalm 96. Sing to the Lord, bless his name, tell of his salvation from day to day, declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous works among the people. For great is the Lord, greatly to be praised, and he is to be feared above all gods. You know, recently we talked about, a couple weeks ago, making a gratitude list, right? Gratitude is the antidote to anxiety, we said. And it's important to see where God has been leading us over the course of the year so you can get a sense of what doors he's opened and which ones he's closed. And sometimes we think that God saying no to something in our life just means it's a dead end, when in fact he's just guiding us a different way, a better way, and God's no's lead to a better yes. And it's so typical that we focus on the no's, don't we? God said no, he's keeping things away from me. But when we reflect on God's yeses, and when we take our reset, we can plan our moves accordingly and realize that God might be saying no to this, but it's because he has a better yes over here for you. Which leads us to the third thing, that the New Year allows us to rejoice. Just like Pastor talked about, singing these songs, right? Psalm 85. Will you not revive us again, that your people may rejoice in you, he says. You know what's fun about birthdays? They come around every year. And every year is a year to be thankful to God that you're alive. Same with holidays. For all their stress, they're really something to look forward to. In the Old Testament, they celebrated a lot, right? You had Passover, sure. You had Purim. It's a day celebrating the victory from the machinations of Haman in the book of Esther. Harvests were celebrated. The new moons were celebrated. They celebrated the time spent wandering the wilderness with a festival of tents. You know what they did? They camped for a week. Like everyone took a vacation. That's pretty sweet. We need a system like that, right? Okay, everyone's off this week. Go to the woods, camp out. It'd be great. Okay? God commanded these festivals and feasts as a blessing and a celebration so people would remember and count their blessings. And I think that the celebration of the new year fosters gratitude in people. We're not only reflecting on God's work of the past year, but on God's promises for the next one. And what a blessing and a privilege to see the dawn of a new year. In unstable times, to know that we've been given more time by God to do what he's called us to do. There's nothing wrong with going to bed early, but the idea that we get to experience a new year with all of its possibilities should not be overlooked. And we, at some point, when the new year rolls around, maybe you're in bed by 8, God bless you, good. But at some point, we need to carve out time where, after reflecting on the past year, whether good or bad, we rejoice that God has given us the opportunity for a reset and a restart. We should accept the new year as something to look forward to and get excited about. If for nothing else, consider this. We are one day closer, 1 year closer to the ultimate fulfillment of all of God's promises and his work in the world. We inch closer to the return of Christ and eagerly await his redemption. Maybe you celebrate because you made it through a particularly hard year. You can rejoice knowing that God's strength was sufficient in your weakness and in the hope of better things to come. Maybe you're celebrating a particularly good year. You had a great year. You can rejoice in God's blessings and the reminders that every good and perfect gift comes from God. And maybe you just felt like the year was kind of meh, right? Or as the kids say, mid, right? Right? You can, and you're just like this, we didn't go anywhere this year. I just feel like I'm exact same place. Well, okay, maybe, but you can rejoice knowing that any setbacks are likely just setups. And with a new year comes new opportunities for blessings and adventures. And my point is this, we choose if we're going to rejoice or if we're going to lament. We get to make that choice. But the Bible says in Psalm 118 that this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Finally, the last thing I want to tell you is the new year coming up. With all the busyness of the holidays, and it can creep up really fast, and we can miss out on great opportunity to take full advantage of the rolling over the calendar. Let me tell you this. Do something that is very hard for a lot of us. Let me challenge you to rest. Let me challenge you to rest. The new year allows us to rest. If you read through the Psalms, right, you see this word there. Right in the middle of the Psalm, David will say something, talk, and he'll say, Selah. Okay? Selah. And it means it's set there as a reminder for you to pause, to reflect on what was just said, to soak it all in, right? I don't know if you've ever heard a song that the song ends and you're just like, yeah, that's good. Just wait. Don't start the next song yet. Let me just take it in. That's kind of what Selah is, to soak it all in and have that moment. The problem is, guess what? We don't know how to pause, right? We don't know how to pause. Anybody have a hard time sitting still? Yep, 100%. Always something to do. I wake up like And if I sit too long, I'm like, now I feel guilty. I don't know about you, but I have forgotten how to be bored, right? I can't be bored anymore. That'd be a sin, right? What I mean by that is that whether I'm busy with important things or not, there's always some sort of stimulation demanding my attention. And it's all within the reach of my hand, by the way. I can't tell you how many times I've paused a movie. You know, it's a bathroom break. I'm like, oh, okay. What's going on in the world? Can't even sit for like 5 minutes, you know, and just be bored. And I can hardly, you know, the constant activity of work and social media and life in general has made it harder for us to experience just boredom. And people say that boredom is a bad thing. But the reality is that boredom is a good thing. And boredom has probably produced some of the greatest ideas ever. In fact, research shows that boredom, or the moment, and when I say boredom, I'm talking about the time when you've paused long enough to let your brain rest, where you've cut off the stimulation. It's when you're sitting on the couch just being a schlub, right? And you're like, nothing to do, okay? Or you're just doing some menial task. But in those moments, your brain actually is still working, and your brain is processing things. And in that moment of pause is when things can kind of start to click for you. In fact, research shows us that boredom, this is beneficial to our creativity and imagination and our mental health and our goal setting and our problem solving. And I like that one because I'm fully convinced at the times where I can't figure something out, the best thing to do is to walk away from it. Because guess what? My brain is still thinking about it, but subconsciously it's figuring it out. Well, my front, brain, my lizard brain knows what to do while the front brain doesn't, okay? It can even aid us in worship. Why? Because it is in the quieting of the mind that God has room to reveal our world to us. So what does that mean when it comes to New Year? That it means that we need to take the time to rest and allow ourselves to be bored, to make room for genuine reflection. Give yourself a pause. Take a deep breath. Perfect time to do it before you head into the new year. Take a day just to sit and enjoy and reflect and rest. We need to make space for God to reveal new things to us. And we need to spend time in the Word, in prayer and worship, and even a little bit of silence so that when we start the new year and reset ourselves, we have a clear sense of what the first steps will need to be. One of the reasons that I like going out, I haven't been mountain biking in a while, but sometimes I'll go out and I'll play golf or go for a hike or whatever. And what I like about those times is that it's kind of quiet, and then my brain is so focused on what I'm doing that it's bringing other thoughts and some clarity into my head that are lost in the fog of busyness. I want to encourage you to take the time to rest. Make rest part of your New Year's celebration. And we can learn a lot from God's people in the Bible who made sure to set aside time, not just for the festivals and the feasts, but every week at the Sabbath to recenter themselves around God. For the Jews that actually celebrate the Sabbath, they turn off all their electronic devices. Amazing. It is amazing. I'm jealous. Okay? They shut it off.
24 hours.
I know. Smart. You need to do that. Try that. That's where that nomophobia comes in, right? A fear of being without your phone. You might not think you have it. You probably, it's peaceful, I know.
Even the lights in their fridge.
Oh, yeah. They turn off their electricity. Brilliant.
They don't cook. They don't make coffee.
I love it. Well, I don't know about the coffee part, but that's,
You make it ahead of
we
time.
find a way, yeah. But look, this once a week pause, that Sabbath, that time for renewal, is so important in our life. And how much more at the beginning of the new year should we pause and turn our attention to the Lord? I'm going to tell you right now, it's okay to be bored. I'm going to let you have my permission to be bored. Okay, so what? Simple. God has set time in motion. He has given us New Year's and milestones and holidays to mark not just the passage of time, but the continuance of God's goodness and God's faithfulness. Okay? So I'm going to challenge you to take time this year to rest and reset and reflect and rejoice. And let's believe that God will continue to reveal his love and his faithfulness and his power in the new year. And that because it's another year, we are blessed to see. All right. Father, thank you for this day.